Have you ever felt the nudge of your intuition, but let logic or other people's opinions or advice talk you out of it? Here is a secret that successful intuitives know and practice. Your inner voice holds the key, and it's time to start trusting it fully. You know that feeling of that deep inner knowing within yourself, like that you know is right and you should listen to, but as the noise of the outside world grows louder, your clarity starts to fade. Sound familiar? So today I'm going to dive into how your intuition speaks to you. Yes, it can be very subtle at first, almost like a whisper that's very, very faint, but with practice it becomes your strongest guide, and it's so necessary if you're a spiritual entrepreneur on this journey to connect with it on a deep, deep level. I'm also going to show you why disconnecting from other people's opinions, their advice, all of that stuff is essential to you staying aligned in your truth and in touch with your intuitive voice. By the end of this video, you will feel more connected to your intuition and empowered, hopefully, to follow your inner guidance with confidence. So number one, the first thing that I want to talk about is your intuition is simply your inner voice, okay? We don't need to confuse and complexify this with anything else. It's your inner guidance system. It's your inner compass, right? And this gets to show up differently according to what type of human you are. And again, those of you who are familiar with human design and astrology, you know that you have your chart that actually shows you what type of authority you are. That is literally your intuitive voice, right? And that's how I see it and how I teach it. So I have a soul blueprint chart that you can grab. It reveals exactly how your intuition speaks to you. I do your astrology chart, your numerology placements, and I break it down into exactly who you are as a person, who you came here to be. So you can grab that. I'll drop the link in the description below if any of you want that. This inner voice either becomes one of two things. The first is it becomes drowned out and silenced by the world around it, or it becomes powerfully loud and in leader position for that individual in charge of it. So this brings me to my first point, being you are in charge of your intuitive voice or your gift. And I say voice because I am a 6'2" self-projected projector in human design, which means that my intuition comes through my own voice and speaking things out loud. So I need to literally have somebody there to just listen to me, blurt my stuff out, and then through listening to my own voice, I get to make a decision. But again, some have mental intuition, loud and clear, so they have it in their brain. Some have their gut. Some others will have their fears that speak through them directly and let them know the answers. It just depends on who you are and how you're designed. And this is why human design is so fascinating as a tool that can help you if you're really stuck on, okay, I don't know how my own intuitive voice works. It can showcase that to you. So again, if you have not yet figured out your human design, or you're looking at the chart and you're like, whoa, this is so much information, then I break it down in my soul blueprint. So again, it'll be linked down below. So that's the first step, is just knowing and recognizing how your intuitive voice speaks to you. It'll only speak to you through one direct way that will be the loudest, but you can access it through other gifts, but they just take a bit more work to actually channel and utilize, and you can learn it as a skill, but there is always one natural way that your intuition is always speaking to you directly through your human design type. So once you dive deeper into learning how your intuition is speaking to you, you can then start to work with it even deeper by practicing asking it internally to guide you. And the key here is to switch your mind into a different gear. Okay. Now I don't say switch your mind off for a reason, because that's literally near impossible, as the mind is always switched on. Even when we're sleeping, like we have dream states and the mind is just constantly active. But when we switch gears, we quieten the mind, and that's the key, because the intuition is quite a subtle, like I said, it's like a whisper, but the mind is really loud. And so when we quieten the mind, we can get a louder intuitive response, and we know how to listen to it. And the biggest reason that so many people struggle to access and listen to their own intuition is because their mind is so freaking loud and in control that they don't access it in a voice, because it's getting shut down by their own minds constantly. And it's almost instantly shut down, because intuition is very quick, it's very subtle, and it doesn't come back again usually, right? And so it's pushed aside by your own mind. So think about that for a second and let that digest. I'm going to give you an example in the meanwhile. Because say, for example, you want to make a decision of which path to go down. You've got two paths in front of you, and your intuition is nudging you very, very silently, quietly down the one that maybe your eyes keep being drawn to. So your eyes are going there, right? And that's your intuition leading your eyesight there to the path that you want to go down. And then because again, intuition feels like nudges. It's very gentle rather than someone shouting at you in your ear going, go that way. That's your mind, right? And that's where your mind will then kick in and go down that way, and it will point to the complete opposite direction. Your mind will just kick in and go, no, maybe we should go that way because of this, and it will give you all of these reasons as to why you should not go down the one that your eyes are glazing at. And so this is where you then sit in a deep indecision, first of all, of which way do I go, because your intuition is in a fight with your mind, right? Or your mind is in a fight with your intuition. And so this loud booming mind, or the external voice, is always going to take over because it's so loud. Like, your logic is always really loud in your head. Your intuition is not that loud. And so because you have such a loud voice in your head telling you, go down this way, go do this, do that, it will almost lead you into where the mind wants to go rather than your intuition. And then it wins, you go down that route that the mind took you down, and you always end up miserable because something shit happened, or it's the wrong turn, or just something was not right. And you might end up saying to yourself, oh, I shouldn't have listened to you if it was somebody else that you listened to, if you went on somebody else's mental decision rather than your own. Or you might say something like, oh, I should have trusted my first instinct. And that is that intuitive power, right? And that's where you want to be, at that level where you can trust it constantly, non-stop, where you're not feeling miserable because you ended up going through the path of your intuitive guidance that's leading you exactly where you're meant to go. And that's where we want to build trust within. And like, this is literally constantly what's happening in the world around us every second of every day. And then we find ourselves so lost, like you find yourself so lost far beyond who we are and who we came here to be. And we start back at rock bottom again, and we find ourselves here on a video like this, trying to learn how to listen to our intuition again, which we used to do as babies and as kids really, really easily. But we lose that along the way because we forgot, or we get lost with being conditioned by society and schools and parents and everything surrounding us that's telling us logic, 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 your mindset is key and listen to your mind. And it's like, no, the mind is not the master of you. You are supposed to be the master of your mind, okay? That is literally the key here. So you need to understand that the mind is currently a master of you if you're not able to listen to your intuition properly. The key here is you becoming a master of your mind by telling it no. Okay, a lot of the time you have to pull it back and go, nope, we're not doing this. No, I'm going to ground myself. And you are instructing it. You are actually instructing it and telling it, I want to listen to my intuitive voice today. Where's my intuition at? What's it guiding me to do? And then you have to learn to shut your mind off, and that's the hardest, difficult part to do. So how do you tap into your intuition deeper so that you get to be the master of your mind? Let's dive into it. So the first thing that you've got to do when it comes to switching off your mind and quieting it down so that the mind can take a back seat and switch those gears to start help serve you rather than to fail you, is switching those gears up. So these are my 5 steps to help you get into this practice. And mind you, it is a practice. So take time to discipline yourself every single day. This takes discipline, this takes work. Nothing in life comes without discipline, effort, and a bit of learning, right? It's just like when we were little toddlers, to learn to walk, we had to practice every single day. To learn to ride a bike, we have to practice every single day. This is nothing different. Everything in life that you want to be better at, you have to do with practice, right? And be disciplined enough to do that. And as toddlers, we're actually really good at being disciplined, more than adults actually. If you notice, most kids, they want to walk, they want to learn to run, they want to play. And so they get up and they just do it. They're disciplined at practice. They do not give up. So where along the journey do we suddenly get lazy and stop disciplining ourselves to do all of this stuff, right? Food for thought to think about. So again, discipline yourself every day for about 5 to 10 minutes to train your mind, to train your intuition, and practice it every day. This can be little things like choosing what to have for lunch and allowing your intuition to pick rather than your logic. And just noticing the fight that happens between your mind and your intuition as well, because now you're in that awareness. Because one of the worst things that you can do for your intuitive muscle as well, again, one thing that I would also practice is allowing your intuition to pick the decision for you over your friends or family or people around you, okay? Because one of the worst things that you can do for your intuitive muscles is listening to the decisions of other people, listening to the intuition of other people, because that's their intuitive guidance for them, not for you. And so what's right for one person might not be right for you. And so while everybody uses intuition and logical and rational thinking, society and education systems and the workplaces tend to condition people to prioritize their minds over their intuition. And so 99% of the population use their minds to make decisions. And if you allow them to make those calls for those things in your life, you're going to get lost, and your intuitive voice tends to drown out. And like I said in the beginning, it gets silenced out. So yes, it takes courage to go against the grain, to listen to your inner voice, even when it doesn't make sense, and even when most of the population will look at you like you're crazy. But you have to go against the crowd and be a lion, not a sheep. We're not here to be followers. We all have our own internal guidance system. And this is how I raise my 5-year-old as well, where I take him to trust his gut. I tell him, trust your own gut. When he asks me, like, Mummy, what do you think I should have? And I'm like, well, what do you think? What's your gut telling you? Make a decision based off your gut, because I don't want him to lose access to his intuitive power and his intuitive voice. And there is a place for logic, but it's not always the leader. Okay, logic always has to come after your intuitive voice comes first. And you're meant to lead, and your intuitive voice is the way forward into that role. So the 5 things that you can start to do to start learning about your inner voice and using it is, number 1, learn what your intuitive voice is and how yours works. There is no point trying to be clairvoyant, which is somebody who can see clearly, like visions, and how they portray this in the movies a bit more, of like psychics being this person who can just see visions mentally. That's not always everybody's intuitive channel. So if your natural intuitive voice is through speaking, your human design charts will give you this. So again, go and check out your human design, your astrology charts to get deeper into that. If you don't actually know what it is and you want somebody to explain it to you, again, I do these. You can grab my charts at the bottom, or just your favorite astrologer, whoever it is, or human design teacher, go and grab from them too, right? Again, if you look at your authority in the chart, that will tell you your intuitive voice and how you connect to it. Number 2 is to practice every single day, 5 to 10 minutes, to train your mind to go silent when you are trying to connect to your intuitive voice. I like literally speak the command to your mind. So I'm listening to my intuitive voice and only taking action intuitively, and I'm not listening to my mind, and repeat that as affirmations as a daily practice for a minimum of 30 to 90 days to really get into that habit. The 3rd step is to reprogram your mind at night before you fall asleep with an intuitive affirmation. You can create this yourself. You literally just record it on your phone, get a nice musical background if you want music behind it, and layer it on top. Or you can comment below if you'd like me to create one for you, and I can pop it on YouTube, and you can literally just click play and listen to that, right? I'll create it specifically for your intuitive voice. And just listen to that every single night for, again, 30 to 90 days, because that will reprogram the neurons in your brain to start performing naturally, because there is only like 10% of your conscious mind that listens to what you're trying to tell it to do, and then 90% is subconscious, and subconscious can only be accessed in the state just before you drift to sleep and just as you're waking up, before you're fully awake, right? And so in order to reshape your mind and rewire it, this is what you need to do. The 4th step that I want you to do is to start setting really strong boundaries with people and other people's decisions, and start making your own, because this can be an extremely uncomfortable process for my empaths and spiritual entrepreneurs who have been people pleasers in the past, and who have been controlled as part of their upbringing and their childhood, or they might have a history of controlling partners as well because of this. Because what happens is you're so used to leaning on that controlling parent or that controlling authority that you look to others always to make decisions for yourself. You just don't trust your inner guidance because you never got taught how to. But myself, coming from that type of environment, coming from that type of, those types of partners as well, if I can move beyond that and set super, super comfortable no's to people now, and be so decisive and stubborn in who I am and my intuitive voice and my decisions, then so can you. Okay, if you don't know my story, I have my podcast that explains everything that I went through, from all the abuse and all of that stuff. You can go and check that out. It's called the You Are Magic podcast. I'll drop that link below as well. So just learn to say no. And you can say it in the nicest way possible. You can be like, oh no, thanks, actually I'm going to do this my way. And again, if people around you don't like this version of you, that's okay. Initially, some people might find it uncomfortable as you go through these changes, because you've never said no to these people before. And so when you suddenly start to say no to these people, they'll be like, what? Like, like you've changed, like I don't recognize you anymore, blah, 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 blah. And there might be this whole issue going on. And you may start to notice that people around you who did control you will not like it. They'll, they might struggle to embrace this new version of you, and that's okay. Again, I want you to just know and understand that this is okay. I went through this myself, and it's a normal process. Eventually they'll come on board because they'll recognize, okay, actually she's just stepping into her power a bit more, he's stepping into his power a bit more, whatever it is. And again, some people who don't come around, they don't need to be part of your circle anymore because they were never meant to be there to support your higher self. Whereas the right people will start to flock in. Like that's how I manifested my soulmate, who eventually came into to raise my own vibration and his own and elevate with me. And so this is completely normal. So I just want you to know that as you go on this journey of success and up leveling your vibration, this is like a constant. It can constantly happen in business as well. So who you once hung around, if they're not elevating and you are, suddenly they might not like where you're suddenly elevating too, but then you'll meet your people at your level. And it's okay. This is all okay, all normal. And I continue to do this. And my circle is literally so small now, I can literally count it on this one hand. Like, that's how many people, okay, that are in my little circle. And that's okay for me. That's perfect. Step number 5, the final step, is to continue this as you get stronger with your intuition. So keep coming back to this practice, because your intuition can get lost as soon as your mind starts to get louder. And the mind is so powerful. If you let it slip away, your intuition can and will disappear amongst the noise, and you'll find yourself back at this video or another one like this, trying to retrain your mind to get in touch with the intuition again. So again, if you're not careful, be super disciplined with this and extra guard on what you consume, because that makes a big difference. Who you are listening to and who you're letting in, and how many times you say no when you want to listen to your inner self. So this is literally your key to success with your intuitive powers. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video and what you want to see more of. Subscribe if you haven't already, like this video, and I will catch you in the next one.